Welcome everybody to another playthrough. This time we're playing the Holiday Hills Tournament, the expert level. And if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and let your clan and all your friends know about this channel as well. Hole number 1 is a par 3, and all of the par 3s in this tournament they all kind of suck. When you look at this, we're not going to be able to see the ball guide go all the way to the hole. 2 of the par 3s, you're going to have, the ball guide is going to extend out on you. And then the other par 3 that we're going to see, you're going to have to deal with elevation. So the par 3s on this tournament, you can make a hole-in-one on all of them, but there's going to be some luck involved in it. There's not just a set way to always pull it up and knock those in like we had in that last tournament. So this one we're going to play sniper mid-club with about a 20% elevation. We're going to play about 2.4 bars of topspin and about 1.8 bars to the left. And we're going to line this up about 5 rings from the sand. So in this general area right here. Now when you're setting this up, if you pull down just a little bit, you will see the ball guide extend out, but that means you're on the down slope of that ridge, and you don't want to be in that spot. You want to be back behind that, so your ball will land on level ground, and it will still roll out a lot further than what you see on the ball guide. Okay, so when we set this up, about 5 rings or so from the sand, and you can't really see it right here. We'll see it when the ball is in the air, but you want to make sure you stay behind that down slope. And you'll also see that I went about 2 bars to the left. This ball is going to end up a little bit on the left side. That's why I changed that adjustment to about 1.8 to the left. So 5 rings from the sand. Again, the ball guide is not all the way down to the hole, but it's close. And if you look at that, it's a little bit on the left side. This wind will kick it back to the right, just not quite as much as I have right on this shot. So we have a 7.7. So inside of our Golf Clash notebook app, with the 7.7 mile per hour wind, we're playing this mid-club, 20% extra for elevation. So we need about 8.4 rings of adjustment. So we're going to set this up and make the wind ring adjustment. About 8.5 rings. We hit a perfect shot. We'll try to pause this right there. So you can see that ridge right here. We want to make sure that we're on top of that where it's level ground. If you hit down here below, the shot is going to be inconsistent and it can very easily fly way past the hole. So we see that bounce and it rolls out. It's a good speed. It just goes on the left side of the cup. Hole number 2 is a par 5. Our first shot, we're going to play this with 10% extra for elevation. We're going to go left as much as you can, and I'm using a Kingmaker, and I'm going to use about 0.3 top spin. So, and this is what you'll need if you have Apocalypse level 5 or higher. If you have an extra mile or an Apocalypse level 4 or lower, you're going to need a little bit more overpower than I use. But we're going to land it right in here and try to curl it around. So we're using about a half ball of curl to the left, and we want this ball to end up down here as far as we can go without being too close to the rough. So you don't want to end up in the rough and just completely mess up the hole. And then with the second shot, I'm doing 5% for elevation and using a sniper when I aim it right at the pin. But I'm going to use full right and about 3 or 4 bars of top spin. So I'm going to line it up in here. So you'll notice if you try to go straight at it, it curls off to the right. So I'm using right and getting it over here on the left side as far as possible. to try to use the slope of that green to get it close to the hole. All right, so when we set up this drive, again, full left, just a little bit of topspin. And I'm going to set it up about 2 to 3 rings off the left rough. So no need to get real aggressive with it. I can curl it a little bit extra. So adjust for the wind. If that wind is helping you, you want to push it up a little bit. So about a half a ball of curl. And when I say half a ball, that means where the middle of this guide is. I want the middle of that ball right in the middle of the circular guide. So that's a half a ball of curl. Then we hit this perfect. And again, we want it down as far as we can get it, but we don't really want to flirt with the rough too much. So we got down, we got plenty of room to spare. If you get in that rough, you will take any chance of albatross out and make your eagle even a little bit tougher. All right, so when we line up the second shot, again, what I'm doing is playing over on the left-hand side, and I want to play this all the way to the right, and then whatever I need to get to the hole. In this case, it's about 3 bars of topspin. Again, try to get it just lined up right in line with the cup. And I am playing this plus 5%, so I'm at maximum plus 5. Now, you'll notice I went in power just a little bit. Whenever you set that ball up, when you set your ball guide up, if you pull it back just a little bit, you don't have to worry about going into overpower. And I just barely went into overpower with that one. So you can see I'm down just a little bit past the center. But if when you're lining that ball up, over here. So when you're lining that up, you see I'm right there at power. If you'll back that up just a little bit and then adjust for the wind, back it up, get your ball guide lined up the way you want it, then adjust for the wind. You won't have to worry about dealing with overpower. So just a little bit of extra power. And I caught a great left, but this ball rolls up just on the left side of the cup. Good speed, went by just a little bit, but that's a good speed. Perfect shot. We're going to have a chance for an albatross there. Hole number 3 is a par 4, and this is one of the easiest holes on the course. You've pretty much got to eagle this one to stay in contention. So what we're going to do is land right in this spot. I'm using a plus 25% for elevation, and the Apocalypse level 6 has enough backspin for this. Rock 9 if you have the rock maxed, or you can use a quarterback 9 plus 9 or 10 will also work on this hole. And what I want to do is use 7 backspin, and then I'm going to use right as much as possible. And I'm going to use about 1.5 balls of curl to the right. So we set that up, those adjustments, that curl, and we're going to put it on the green fairly close to the hole. So with 8.8 miles per hour, he could go almost 11 lines. This is my opponent's shot. So when he sets this up, he's 5 rings here. So he's going to go almost 6 rings up into the fairway. So he could have pulled that back another 5. And he's doing a good amount of curl. Could use just a little bit more. He hits a perfect ball. And you'll see how far up in the fairway he is. So he landed. He had plenty of room there. So he was about 6 rings into the fairway. He could have pulled that back a little bit more, but he still gets a pretty good result. So it rolls up and just a little bit past the pin, but over on the left-hand side. Okay, so when I set my shot up, I'm going to go full backspin. It takes 7 bars, as much to the right as I can go. Now I'm playing mine a lot closer. I'm playing that 25% adjustment, and I'm about 2 rings into the fairway. So I've still got a little bit of room to spare. So I'll make my adjustment about 1.5 balls of curl to the right. And even in this case, it's just a little bit too much curl. I hit it perfect. So land about where I expected to. And that rolls up onto the fairway in nice shape, about pin high, a little bit less curl. You might even have a shot at a hole-in-one on a par 4. Hole number 4 is a par 3. And with our wind direction, if we try to do this rough bump, we're going to pull it back right up on top of this knoll. So we're going to be at an elevated position. So because of that, since we're pulling back to a higher ground, the ball is going to go further than you expect it to go. So what I'm doing with this one is using a quarterback, playing about 1-to-1 minus 0.5, which means if I have a 8.5 mile per hour wind, I'm going to adjust about 8 rings. And I'm going full left, 3 backspin. And I want this about 1 ring away from the fairway and about 3 rings away from the sand. And when you do that in this area, you'll see the ball guide just fall right down to the hole. And what I'm going to do, because we are pulling back to elevated ground, whenever I get my ball guide situated, I'm going to pull it back about 1.8 rings. And that's probably not even enough. I'm probably going to go a little over 2 rings from now on, pulling that back towards the tee box. And then I'm going to adjust for the wind. All right, so full left, back 3. And then when I set this down, so you'll see right there, I'm about 3 rings away from the sand trap, just a little over 1 ring away from the fairway, 1 ring into that rough. And you'll see that ball guide's going right down to the hole. The only problem is we've got this higher ground. So with that wind direction, when we pull straight back to here, we're going to be at higher ground. What's going to happen is the ball guide is going to go further. It's going to go a little bit further than we think. And that's why I'm going to take this and pull it straight back towards the tee box once I have everything set. So I'm going to try to get that ball guide line to where it's straight and then pull it back. So that was a little less than 2 rings, and it wasn't quite enough. And I also over adjust this just a little bit. I want about 7.5 rings. I want to take that about 7 rings because that's half a ring less than the wind. So hit it perfect. See, it's a little bit further over. It's definitely not close enough. So I pulled it back about 1/2 a ring too far. I want it down here in this area. And if we get there, it'll roll out just a little bit better, closer to that hole. Hole number 5 is a par 4, and there are several different approaches. I've seen a lot of people hit it down into this right fairway and try to do a rough bump to the hole. But when you're moving around in this rough, the ball guide is all over the place. I don't like that shot at all. I have hit down here, and I've used a Guardian to full backspin, and I've stopped it safe close to the hole. With an Apocalypse 7 and maybe a Power 4 or Power 5 ball, you can hit the ball down in this area and maybe even have a short iron shot in. So that's a possibility. But what I'm doing is I'm going to the left fairway. I'm going to land in here and drive it over to this area. So with the Apocalypse 5 or higher, you can use 7 topspin and about 2 to the left, and you only have to go about half of overpower. So you don't need full overpower, just about half of a pullback past the normal power, and you'll be able to get it into this fairway. And then we're going to take a long iron, about 15% extra for elevation, and just hit it down here towards the hole. Now the attempt that I'm going to make in this video is a full backspin. So I was trying to stop it and let it roll down to the hole. I think in the future what I'm going to try to do is maybe hit that long iron down into this area, use full right and a couple of backspin, and see if I can't get a ball guide, especially with the Grizzly. It's got a great ball guide, and you know, if you hit it well into this area, then you're going to be about at mid club on the long iron. So Grizzly's going to have plenty of distance to get it down to the hole. If you got a B52 level 7, then that's got just as good of a ball guide, maybe a little bit better, and you know, it'll work the same as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you my opponent's drive. My opponent has an Apocalypse 6 and has just changed to a dead ball. So this is an attempt to go towards this center fairway. So it's not a bad attempt, but there's a little bit too much curl, and my opponent catches the rough on the left. But with the Power 4, or if you've got the Stealth ball, the Power 5 Win 3 ball, that would be great for this hole if you're going to try to go down the center. So a little bit too much curl and got over here to the left, so that fairway's just right there to the right side. And again, what I'm going to try to do is hit this fairway on the left. So I'm using full topspin with Apocalypse level 6 and a couple of bars, almost 2 bars to the left. And adjust for the wind. So with that 7.3 mile per hour wind, I am using 10% for elevation, full club. It's about 5.7 rings is what I just adjusted. So make that adjustment, and then when I pull this back, I'm not all the way down in full power. I'm about half power. Hit a perfect shot, or great shot, but it's still going to be close enough. Just carries that and still rolls out. Not all that close. Even if you do catch the rough on that shot, the Nirvana will be able to get you right down to the hole. So I set this one up. I brought the Grizzly this time. And you can see I'm a little over mid-club, maybe about 75% of the club. And what I'm trying to do here is the full backspin. This whole deal, the whole green slopes down to the hole. So if I could get it to stop, it will roll right down to the hole. But it's kind of a weird spot here that I catch, and it bounces up just a little bit too high. So again, what I'm going to try to do on this shot in the future is more out in the fairway. I'm going to use full right spin and maybe a couple of bars of backspin and try to get it to roll out to the hole. So you can see that ball bounce straight up, and it came up just a little bit short. Still easy tap in for birdie. Hole 6 is a par 5. And this is probably the best chance to get an albatross in this tournament. So I'm going to play my Apocalypse, and you'll see my opponent uses an Apocalypse level 2. So you'll see what that shot looks like. On my drive, I'm going to use about 15% extra for elevation. I want to go about 5.5 bars of topspin, and then right spin as much as possible. And I'm going to use almost a full ball of curl to the right. And then with my second shot, I'm going to use the sniper. So my first shot is going to stop somewhere in this area. I'm going to land on that little peninsula right here with my sniper. Full right, about 2 topspin, and a little bit of curl to the right, and it's going to roll right down to the hole. So about 5.5 bars of topspin, and then ride as much as possible. In the Notebook app, 8.3 miles per hour wind. Full club, 15% extra for elevation. I'm going to need about 6.8 rings of wind adjustment. So we line this up, and you can get a good shot at pull straight back. So get that lined up, make the wind adjustment. And then almost a full ball of curl. So you can see I'm about 3/4, a little over 3/4 of the ball. And again, that's the center of the ball. About halfway between that is 3/4. So this is just a little over 3/4 of a ball of curl. Hit a perfect shot. So when this ball makes its bounce, and again, you want to make sure that you don't use any overpower on that shot. So it's going to come in, and what you don't want to happen is to catch that rough. So I was at full distance. I don't want to push that up at all. Don't want to catch that rough, so no extra power. And then it's a matter of getting between this rough and the sand that's just over beside that. And I'm usually going to go on the sand side, or the rough side. So when that rough is over here, I got fairly close to it, but that's going to give me a good angle to come in for my second shot. And my opponent, using a level 2 Apocalypse, he's doing the same thing. It's full topspin with this, but it's still about 5.5 rings, and then ride as much as possible. Now he's turned it around. You don't have to do this. If you like to push the rings up, then it works out well on this hole, but you can still pull the ball guide down. And he's using about the same amount of curl I have. Lands in a good spot, and he gets a little closer to the sand that's on the right than the rough, and all that means is he's going to have a little bit tougher wind angle coming in. So you can see I'm a little bit left of where he was at. So over here on the right, when you're coming in from this direction, you're going to have to really bend it back to get to the right. If you're a little bit further to the left, like I am, I can almost hit a straight shot. It just needs a little bit back to the right. And this wind angle is great for the Albatross because it's coming in this way. In the past, we've had that left to right wind, and this tree will come into play if you have the left or right. With this wind angle, we're going to be adjusting back to the right. The tree's not going to be in play at all. So I'm going to set this up right as much as possible with just a little bit of topspin on it. Now when you're looking at this wind is going to kick that ball guide further to the left. So when you hit that second bounce, I'm very close to the rough, but when you actually see what happens, it's going to be further out, and it's going to roll down right down to the cup. So I want about 2 rings or so from the rough. I want my ball guide not in the rough, but just off of it. And then I'm adjusting this. I'm not quite at full power, at full distance, so just a little bit less than 8.5 rings. And then I'm using a slight amount of curl to the right. I did catch a great left, so probably with that low wind, I probably had a little bit too much curl. But the great ball saves me, and that drops right down into the cup. And this is a shot that every time I hit this, I'm close to the cup, but that's it's probably the best chance for an Albatross on this tournament. Hole number 7 is a par 3. And this one, I'm going to use the B52 as long as it's level 5 or higher. I'm going to play this at full club with about 20% extra for elevation. And I'm going to use about 2.7 to 3 bars of backspin, depending upon how much wind I have. And I'm going to place this right down in this area, about 5 rings from the rough. And when I line this up, I want my second bounce to be right in the middle of that fairway. And when I set up my curl, I'm going to do about mid to the right edge of the guide. I'm going to curl it about that much to the right. All right, so I'm going to set my ball guide 5 rings from the rough, full right, and I got almost 3 bars of backspin there. 7.5 mile per hour wind, so that's pretty low. That's why I didn't use 3 full bars. If you get up 8.5 or more on the wind, then you want to do at least the 3 bars of backspin. And this is another one where we're going to have to offset the ball guide. So you can see when you're looking at that, and we are going to curl it a little bit, but I'm 5 bars, 5 rings from the rough. And my second bounce, I'm going to pull back just a little bit, but that's, close to the middle of that fairway spot. And adjust for the wind. And then when I pull back, all right, so right here I'm about the middle of the guide ring. So when you look at that wind angle, it can be more of a left to right. This was a pretty close to a tailwind on this shot, so I really needed a little bit more. That needs to be all the way over on that right-hand side, and I'm going to pull it over a little bit more, but I hit a great right, and that kind of took care of it for me. And you also see that ball landed on the fringe. So we landed further than what the ball guide said. That wind is going to elongate it. And again, thanks to the great right, that ball did go up and drop in. Hole number 8 is another par 4, and this is probably the second easiest hole on this course. So this is pretty much a must eagle as well. And what we're going to do, we're going to land in this area, and we're going to bounce it over to the middle fairway. Both of these shots, we're going to use plus 20% extra for elevation. And with the drive, we're going to go full right. We're going to go about 1.5 bars of topspin. So I want to roll this on down, but I don't want to risk catching the rough. And when we do that shot, we're going to use about 3/4 of a ball of curl to the right. And then with our second shot, with our wind angle, we're going to be pretty much straight into the headwind. And I'm going to use either my Hornet, or if you got level 7 Kingfisher, that's my favorite short iron that I have on one account. But otherwise, it's the Hornet. And what I do to pick is I'm looking at the best accuracy as well as with the best ball guide. And that is Kingfisher level 7 or Hornet below that. And that shot I'm going to use about 1.8 bars of backspin and usually 1 to 2 bars to the right. But what I want to do is align directly into the headwind. So when I'm making that second shot, I want to make my adjustment straight towards the pin. So if my adjustment's off by a little bit, it may just come in a little bit hotter. So full right, about 1.5 bar of topspin. And I'm going to set this about 2 or so rings from the rough. Then make my wind adjustment. That is plus 20% on that one. And again, about 3/4 of a ball of curl to the right. So it lands and rolls out, and it rolls fairly close to the rough. It's probably even a little bit closer than I'm comfortable with. So maybe just a little bit less than 1.5 bars. And then with my second shot, again, this is just a very short iron. And what I'm doing there is measuring where I'm at. So, I was here up to here, so about 50%. I kind of stopped that in the middle, so about 50% here. This is about 25%, maybe a little over that. But when I pull back, I'm going to be at about 30%. So in my notebook app, 8.1 mile per hour wind, I'm at about 30% of max distance, using a 20% extra for elevation. So I need about 6.2 rings of adjustment. And this is very important, making those correct adjustments. If you expect that ball to go in, you got to have the right adjustments. And I do expect this shot to go in. This is one that I expect to make every time. So a little less than 2. I'm using 1 bar to the right, and that gets me pretty close to straight into the wind. That wind bar is almost straight up and down. And when I looked at that, I want that ball guide slightly through the hole. Turn it around so I can pull straight back and make that wind adjustment. And then if we make a perfect shot here, which we do, this ball is going to roll straight into the cup. So I've seen a lot of people trying to use some kind of a rough bump, and the ball guide is glitchy all over the place. This is an easy shot. Play it to that middle fairway, easy short iron straight into the wind, get that eagle. And our final hole is a par 5. And what I'm doing, I'm hitting it straight down this left fairway. I've seen a few people try to go to this right side. If you do, you want to make sure you get it down as far as possible to try to get that over. Either way, we're using a 10% over adjustment on the first shot. With what I'm doing, if you play, well, actually either way, if you've got something like a dead ball, a Wind 3 Power 4 ball would help. That new stealth ball, the Wind 3 Power 5, would be a great ball for this hole. But what we're going to try to do is go full top spin. I'll put just a little bit to the left on there to compensate for the wind, but I'm going to use almost, if not full, overpower and try to knock it straight down this fairway. If you set your ball guide up right through the middle of that neck, if you end up doing great ball left or right, you should still be okay. And then on my second shot, I want either the big dog or the cataclysm. And in this case, usually when I'm using the longest wood, then usually I want the biggest top spin, but that's not the case on this shot. What we want to do is just make sure that we can get to this spot to land it. Top spin doesn't really matter. What's more important is the ball guide on this shot. All right, so this is my opponent's shot. You can see he was up past that rough, but it's going to take full overpower to get there. So he's going to try to land it short and bounce it over. If I was going to attempt this shot, I think I would either do it with a high-level Thor's hammer or with a big topper. So one or the other. But he's going to land it short with his extra mile. And it just really doesn't have enough top spin to get it down where you need it to go. It bounces over. You really want that way up into this area if you're going to try to go that direction. But I would rather play this on the left-hand side. This is probably the shot that could really screw up a round. So again, I put just a little bit of left on that, but I want to make sure my ball guide is going straight down the center of this fairway. And then if I make the proper wind adjustment, so playing that 10% extra, you can see I'm going into power. But when I do this shot, I'm going to go almost a full overpower, and I catch a great left. But since I had it centered in the fairway, it's still going to go right down the middle. Now, the only problem with this, since I did a great left, it's a little bit over here on the left side, so it makes it a little bit longer of a shot. If I hit that perfect or even great right, it would have been a better shot. And then this is my opponent. I would still use a Cataclysm in this case. And not the Horizon, just doesn't have enough length. But he's able to get it here and bounce it over. And, you know, this is not a bad shot. You're not going to get an albatross from that side, but this is not going to be a hole that we expect an albatross on. It's a perfect shot, curls it around, and he's going to roll it up there where it's, you know, not too bad of a chip in. So up there, almost pin high. May not even be able to get on the green because of that big stretch of rough from that side. So if you were curling it to the green, you're going to be hit that rough. So I'm using a Cataclysm, and again, since I did the great left, I'm having to go a little bit into power to get it up to that spot. I look back here at the bounce over. You can do that, but if you can land up there in the fairway, that last part of the fairway, it's a whole lot better. Going full right, and then about 3 or 4 bars of topspin. And when I make this adjustment, I'm actually pulling away. So I am able to push this up about a half a ring. So I need just a little bit of extra overpower to get it to that spot. And about a half a ball of curl. I did hit a great left, and this ball ends up just a little bit on the left side. But again, very, very easy spot for a chip in for the eagle. This is not going to be a great hole for an albatross, whether you play left or right. The right side may be a little bit safer, but that left side, that's the direction I'm going to go. And can be a tough shot on that drive. And that is my playthrough for the Holiday Hills tournament. Wish everybody a lot of luck. And remember to hit the like and the subscribe buttons. And just to let you know, as I go through with my opening round, I will be updating the individual videos. I will make notes on those when I label those. So if we do get a little bit different approach or something that works, I will be sure to let everybody know about those. Thank you for watching. Again, remember to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.